Manningham one gets 10,000 people at Rothie Lake. It's one of the biggest in Melbourne.
Wow. Is it quite good?
It's excellent. They like the whole park.
Well, that's why.
They have a huge stage. They have like every food truck you could possibly imagine.
It's a great family event.
Yeah.
No, we genuinely enjoy Maroondah. I go with my sisters and their kids, and we just...
Where's it at?
Croydon Park.
Oh yeah.
It's a town park. And yeah, mate, I don't care how old I am. I love fireworks.
Yeah.
I'll never not love fireworks. That's what I loved about the New Year here, the Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
This year we had fireworks.
Yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. You know that atmosphere.
Yeah,
We love that.
Yeah,
right?
it's great.
Yeah, it's pretty. People like that atmosphere in China.
Yeah, Deacon Shields, I've probably got another 20 of those, and then a few sporadic little parties, but I sort of feel like we've broken the back of it.
Yeah, same. I think my biggest one at the end is East Doncaster Secondary. It's like about 800 people there when they do their graduation.
Where do they do that?
They pack out the New Hope Church, opposite Blackburn Primary. In fact,
That fits 800.
they have them standing in the
Yeah,
edges.
I believe it,
We had some issue with the live stream platform, so just wait for
yeah.
it.
Sure, yeah.
Using like 90% of tech, turn it off and turn it on again.
Yeah. Exactly. 95% maybe.
Already tried.
If no one's listening.
Shut down everything.
Yeah.
Restart it.
Cheap seats.
Yeah. Don't know
That's
tech.
that's my,
Don't know the language.
Yeah.
my advice on everything. Just turn
What
it
is
on.
what is your solution? Restart.
Yeah.
Did you see my hair?
It's very.
It's grown back now.
severe. Oh, you had it even shorter.
In the
army,
Yeah. Very short.
They cut it for you.
Yeah. $15.
They made you pay for a
Yeah.
buzz cut.
In Kapuka, $15.
How'd you go? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah. Learn a lot of
Do they
things.
still yell at people there?
Still, of course. They're meant to be.
Do they still do hospital corners on the blankets?
Yes, they do. Yes.
I actually, in Canberra,
Yeah.
I've been staying at there's a sort of a motel connected to a church, the Polish Catholic church, and you have to, it's really cheap, it's $50 a night,
Yeah.
but the only deal is you've got to make your bed at the end.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you all to Voice of Community. I'm Aaron Quinn, your host for today's broadcast. We're addressing some of the most pressing issues affecting our community, from raising housing prices and the living costs, for the challenges faced by small businesses and the integration of multicultural communities. We aim to explore practical solutions that can make a difference. Join us, the two distinguished guests, Mr. Keith Wilhelm, Federal MP for Menzies, and the Honourable Michael Sugar, Shadow Minister
Thank you.
for Housing. Thank you for both of you coming here today. So let's begin. Sorry for the delay because we come across some technical issues at the backwards, but we address that. So enjoy the show now. Let's begin by giving our guests a chance to introduce themselves and their visions and values. So shall we start with Mr. Sugar?
Sure. Thank you very much, Aaron. Well, my name's Michael Suker. I'm the member for Deakin. Deakin takes in a big part of the eastern suburbs, stretching from Blackburn all the way out to Croydon. And I've been the member now for just over 11 years.
Wow.
I live in Blackburn. I'm married. My wife is Anna. We've got two boys, 5 and 7. I'm the Shadow Minister for Housing, Social Services and the NDIS. And in the former government, I was the Minister for Housing and Assistant Treasurer. In the end, like Keith, I'm sure I'm motivated to ensure that we can have a prosperous, safe country. That's what motivates my work. that for the next generation, for my children, for all of our viewers' children and grandchildren, that we can hand over a better country than what we inherited, and we need to work hard every day to make sure we can improve our society to do that. And having come from a migrant background myself, to ensure that everybody who is here, all Australians, regardless of their background, feel included and have all of the opportunities for prosperity and happiness that led our families to coming here to begin with. So that's a bit of a summary, I suppose, of what motivates me, and I'm very, very proud and very happy to be with you today.
Thank you so much, Mr. Shuker. It seems you did a lot of job for the past 11 years, and thank you for your contribution to our country and for the people.
My pleasure.
And also, Mr. Willingham, would you introduce yourself a little bit for our audience?
Of course. Well, like Michael, I too wasn't born here, so I migrated with my family, and we settled in the eastern suburbs of Melbourne, where we still live, and my parents are as well. And family is everything. There's so much to like about this area, but like many who live here, we love being near each other. I'm a neighbour to Michael in terms of our seats. Mine takes in most of Manningham, including Doncaster and Templestowe, Bulleen, all the way through to Warrandyte, and then all of where we are now. So all of Box Hill South, some of Surrey Hills, Mont Albert North, and a little bit of Blackburn, which I share with Michael. So it's our great honour to represent the eastern suburbs, and particularly the Chinese diaspora who live in our seats, where we're very proud to represent you, and we're proud of your contributions to Australia. In terms of what motivates me, I'm a newer member of Parliament. I haven't been in as long as Michael has. This is my first term, but I also have a keen interest on making sure that Australia is prosperous and safe. And I know for many of you watching, either you or a family member run a small business, and what we know is that it's particularly tough for small business here in Victoria, and so Michael and I are very keen to listen to you and then work hard to take that pressure off you so that you spend more time with your family and that you get the rewards that you deserve.
Oh, that's great, Mr. O'Lohan. And both of you did a lot of contribution to our community and also want the prosperity for our country. And also both of them are looking to support small businesses and also for the migrants. And also, Mr. Shuker, as a Shadow Minister for Housing and the former Minister for Housing, could you highlight and the key priorities you focused on during your tenure and how they align with the Liberal Party's core values?
Sure. Well, for so many Australians, for generations of Australians, home ownership has been a bedrock of creating wealth for our families, but most importantly putting a safe and secure roof over our head. And for many Australians, new Australians, migrants to this country, one of the reasons that we were motivated to come here was because of the great Australian dream of home ownership. So we are absolutely focused on making sure that the next generation of Australians are able to own a home, and we know it's getting harder and harder for young Australians to own a home. In fact, some young Australians are losing hope that they will ever own a home. So the answer ultimately is very complicated, but quite simply we need to build more homes, and our focus has been how do you ensure that we're able to build more homes, make more homes available, and we know that will mean there are more homes available for those young Australians to buy. We recently announced a policy, a $5 billion fund that we know will unlock 500,000 new homes. New homes for people to purchase, for first home buyers to purchase, affordable homes in new suburbs around our country. And we think that those additional 500,000 homes will make a real difference. There are a range of other things we need to do too. We need to get government out of the way of building more homes. We know government regulations make it harder and more expensive to build homes. So we've announced some changes to freeze the changes called the National Construction Code, which most people won't know, but in essence are a set of rules that just make it harder and harder to build new homes, and for the homes that are built, it makes them more expensive. So we want to bring those prices down for new homes. We want more homes to be built, and we want those homes not to be owned by the government. We want those homes to be owned by young Australians who are able to buy a new home, start a family, have a secure roof over their head, and that's absolutely our focus.
Oh, that's great. I think most of the people who is immigrant or who come overseas, they want to settle here, they need to purchase a home, they want to raise their families, so they need a place. So, and think this is very important for them. And also, I'm the first generation of immigrant, so I'm striving really hard to get my house, and affordability is the first thing I would take into consideration.
Totally.
Yeah, that's great. And Mr. Wollenhan, you say it's your first term for the 4 years, but you did a great job, and a lot of people can recognize you. That's very good. And could you share your journey in public service and what inspired you to be a politician and to join the Liberal Party? And how do your experiences shape your visions for your electorate?
So, like many watching this, not being born here, but so grateful to Australia, I was always looking for a way to give back. And the first way that I thought I could give back was to put on Australia's uniform. And so I served as an army officer and deployed overseas. But I was also then curious about the law, and like Michael, who was a lawyer, he was a tax lawyer before Parliament, I was also a commercial lawyer and practiced as a barrister for 12 years. So those two careers I really got a lot out of, and helped shape me into the person that I am. One of the things I learned from the law, which I know Michael's very good at as well, is making sure that you work hard and that you're across the detail, because it's in the detail that success lies. And for anyone who runs a business or is a professional, you know that to be true. And that applies in politics as well. And that's why, you see it in the way Michael is across his many portfolios. He has to be across the detail, and it's a lot of hard work. But he's trained in that, and he's good at it. In terms of the other things that motivate me, it's family. I'm also a father of 2 children, and they're both in primary school, like Michael's children. In fact, I think one of our sons has the same name.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, good taste in that.
Yes, we do.
Good taste.
And when we go to sleep at night, we want to make sure that we're making decisions for a better tomorrow, for a better Australia, so that they will be proud when they look back decades to come that their dads served our community well and thought about the next generation rather than just the 24-hour news cycle.
Oh, that's very inspiring for both of your experiences. And now we can move to the second question. So the housing and housing affordability and raising living cost. I think this is the problem we all come across. So, Mr. Shuker, young people are particularly affected by the housing, as you said. How do you see, as a federal member, to addressing these challenges in the future? You mentioned about the new houses underway, right? So, are there any innovative housing policies being considered?
Sure. Well, the problem at the moment is we're building fewer homes than we've built for a very long time. The last coalition government built at our peak, we built 230,000 homes in a year. And when I say we, I mean the entire Australian building sector built 230,000 homes under the coalition government. We're now down to about 160, 170,000. So it's dropped off massively. And in fact, since the Labor government has been elected, we've been building record low numbers of homes. So you don't need to be a building expert to realise that if you're building fewer homes, it makes it harder and harder for people not only to buy a home, but it also makes it harder to find a rental. And we know that for so many people living in a suburb, if they have to leave one rental, it's very hard to find another in the same suburb, and that can often be quite devastating for a family if you have to take children out of schools because you've got to move a long way away to find another rental. So the problem's sadly getting a lot worse. The policy I alluded to earlier about building an additional 500,000 homes is pretty much designed to fund the sort of infrastructure that gets housing projects going. The roads, the water, the sewage, the telecommunications. It's not particularly exciting, but it's the sort of infrastructure that gets projects going. We're also very keen to continue to support first home buyers through a program that I put in place as Housing Minister called the Home Guarantee Scheme. It basically assists first home buyers to buy a home with a 5% deposit. Banks are requiring 20% deposits for people to buy a home, which takes nearly 10 years for the average person to save a deposit. The Home Guarantee Scheme provides a government-backed guarantee, which means that first home buyers only need to save the 5% deposit. The other thing we've announced is we're going to allow Australian first home buyers to get access to a portion of their superannuation to put towards that deposit to buy a new home. We know that the average 30-year-old has about $40,000 in super, and so we think they should be able to use that to contribute towards their deposit to buy a first home. And then when they sell that home, maybe 10 years later, they need to put that money back into super, but they've at least been able to use that money to get into a home. So we want to help first home buyers get the money together, and we know the deposit is the hardest step, and it's something we're very proud of, because we know that particularly for new Australians, whether you're a migrant from China or any other country, that home ownership is so important, and we want to support all Australians to realise that dream.
That's Australian dream, right? To get a house first.
Yeah, totally.
That's very good. So it's very good news for the young people and also for the first home buyers. So they can take this advantage and get their first house and also get their family settled.
Absolutely.
So it's very good to hear, Mr. Wilhelm. So many. I realized that the RBA just keep the interest rate for 4.35 today. Still keep that rate. So many families are struggling with the increasing cost of livings. And what measures is the Liberal Party proposing to relieve this pressure?
That's right. So we have seen inflation higher for longer in Australia. So we recognise that this is a global problem, but the solution is one that's not been handled well in Australia. And the Reserve Bank is a separate institution that sets monetary policy. But they have said again and again and again that the government is making their job harder by keeping government spending at an excessive level. So whilst government spending is at record levels, the Reserve Bank can't bring interest rates down because inflation's too high.
Yeah.
So what we need is we need a government to live within its means. And you know what that is. Anyone who has a household or a business, you balance the books and you don't spend more money than you earn. We need the government to have the same philosophy, because in the end, it's not the government's money, it's your money. And so they need to spend money responsibly, not waste it. And if that happens, then the Reserve Bank will see inflation drop and interest rates will drop. So there is a role for government, and instead what we sadly see is you can take two approaches. You can look at the cause of the problem, which is government spending, or you can look at the symptoms, which is where you say, well, here's a little bit of extra cash to help you. And for every $10 that the government says, here is our helping hand, which is your money, there's 10 times that in terms of the help you could give if we brought spending back down. So we want to address the cause of inflation, and that's what the focus should be, and that's what our focus will be as a coalition.
Yeah, that's great. And what do you think, as we mentioned, how do these policies specifically support multicultural communities, and who often face additional barriers like language or financial barriers, and what do you think about that?
I guess the first thing to say is that we're all Australians.
Yeah.
Whether you became a citizen the other night, Whitehorse Council had their citizenship ceremony, and I was there welcoming new citizens. You are just as much an Australian as someone who's many generations here. So this is an issue facing all Australian families. But what we know from multicultural families is that you're looking for a better life, not just for yourself, but for your children and your grandchildren. And as Michael said, the pathway to a better life is home ownership.
Yeah.
And you can't do that if you're constantly being taxed more, your bills are going up, and you're paying record amounts in either rent or your mortgage. So we need to take the pressure off you, so then that you can support your family in future generations. And that's an aspiration that multicultural families place a premium on, because it's the very thing that made you pick Australia as the country to call your home. And it's not easy getting here and getting that ticket for citizenship or permanent residency. So you've worked hard to get it, and we need to work hard for you as a government.
Yeah, that's great. We're all Australians, so we all have to contribute to our country, and yeah, that's great. And also, like we can talk about the support for small businesses. Small businesses are the backbone in our country, and especially in culturally diverse communities like ours. Myself, I'm a small business owner, and also I saw one of your speech in Parliament House. You mentioned that you are a son of small business owner.
Yes, well, my grandfather ran a shop and a pub in Ireland, and then my dad runs his own roof plumbing business.
That's great. So my question is, as someone with a background connected to small business, how do you think the federal government can better support immigrant entrepreneurs?
In order for Australia to be a prosperous nation, we want more people like migrants and anyone starting businesses, because the future big businesses will start as small businesses today. So we want people to take a risk, and we want them to be rewarded for their effort. And at the moment, it's very hard to do that, and it's particularly hard here in Victoria. We saw an alarming statistic recently where every state, bar one, saw an increase in the number of small businesses. Victoria was the exception. We saw a drop in small businesses of 11,000 in a financial year. Now, there's a churn to that, but given population is growing, you should see that grow, but it went backwards. And there's two reasons. One is that small businesses are moving interstate to either Queensland or New South Wales or Western Australia, or they've gone against the wall and they've gone bankrupt. And behind each of those stories is a missed opportunity and a tragedy. So we want to make sure that small businesses are supported, because that is the future prosperity of Australia.
Yeah, no, that's great. Mr. Shuka, so we talk about the small businesses, and also we talk about the reality in Victoria, and also the inflation, and also operational cost all rising. So what are the steps do you think the Liberal Party is proposing to help the small businesses to survive and thrive?
Well, the first and most direct thing you can do is reduce taxes on small businesses. And we've seen, sadly, as Keith quite rightly points out, that in Victoria, when we've got a long-term Labor government, what have we seen? We've seen taxes increasing. We've seen very similar things at a federal level, with taxes collected being significantly higher than under the former coalition government. And we saw initially the Labor government federally removed some tax concessions for small businesses in relation to the instant asset write-off, which I think they've since been forced into partly reinstating. But one of the biggest things that I hear from my small businesses are the increasing costs of energy. And whether it's a cafe, whether it's a manufacturing business, everywhere I go in my electorate or around the country, I have small business owners who go to the bottom drawer and they pull out a bill. Often it's an electricity bill or a gas bill. And in some cases, we're talking thousands of dollars more a month, particularly for manufacturing businesses, thousands of dollars more every month in energy costs, in electricity prices. And the thing that I think makes them angry is that the Labor government and Anthony Albanese promised to bring down electricity prices, promised to bring down energy prices more broadly, and they've not delivered on that. In fact, prices are up a lot. And if you're in an industry where you're manufacturing products and you're competing against foreign products, it's not very easy to pass those prices on. If you're in a small cafe or a small business, it's not easy just to ask for your customers to pay more to cover those massive increases in energy. So we've seen, sadly, under this government, the policies have led to higher energy prices. That's really hurting small businesses. Of course, it's hurting every single one of us when we go to the supermarket or when we have to pay our own bills. But in every single product we buy, there's a component of that that's energy. And if energy prices are going up, it just makes life not only harder for customers, but for small businesses. And So that's a good place to start. But of course, lowering taxes for small businesses, as the coalition government did, we reduced the tax rate for small businesses in this country, and I'm very surprised and disappointed we haven't seen the Labor government trying to do the same thing. In fact, they've increased taxes on small businesses, which has really hurt them.
Yeah, I also heard about a lot of feedbacks from the small business owners, like the cafe shop, or the utility bills increased.
Yes.
25%.
Correct.
That is very, like, a lot of pressure for them. And a lot of them closing down as well. They no longer make a profit, so we're losing small businesses. So, yeah, we really need some support from the federal level. Yeah. All right. So, also, do you think enhancing collaboration between small businesses owners through the dedicated platform could create more opportunities for growth and innovation? From your both perspectives.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. When I was the Assistant Treasurer in the last government, I was very reliant on small businesses providing me feedback, both formally and informally, about the issues that they were facing, because quite often it's small businesses who are on the front line. Particularly, if I may say, with our Australian Chinese community, so many of those businesses are very export focused, very trade focused, have great relationships around the globe, including in China, and they are often alive to opportunities, emerging markets where the government isn't. So I think it's very important that the government or that any political party is really engaging with the entrepreneurs and the small businesses who are creating the wealth and prosperity for this country, it's something that Keith and I both take very seriously, and which is why we spend so much time talking to our small businesses, and where they raise issues, we raise them in the Parliament, and when we're in government, we put in place policy to support them.
Yeah, that's great. What do you think, Keith?
I agree, and look, there's many ways to engage with people. One-on-one is always the best. So Michael and I, we will visit small business owners in our electorate, but we're also customers. So many of the businesses I go to, I meet people, and again, many people of Chinese heritage. And what I notice, and I said this in a speech in the Parliament, more often than not, you see the person working there is the owner, and they're the first in, last to leave, and they pay all their bills and everyone else first. They get the last bit of money. And in the corner, you usually see one of their children doing their homework.
Yeah.
And what I see when I walk into those small businesses is a family, and it's a family unit working hard for a better tomorrow. And they're some of the best of what makes us a multicultural country. But we also connect online. And Michael and I, we both are in Chinese social media, or WeChat, or a Little Red Book, and we've been humbled by a lot of the direct feedback that we get from the community. So if you're watching this, please follow us both on those platforms. We'd love to hear from you. And we're also out and about in the community. So our job is to reach out to our electorates. Each of us represents just under 2 MCGs full of people, so about 170,000 people each. But it's you use every platform you can get, including multilingual ones like I've just mentioned.
Oh, that's great. And also, I realized that both of you get the platforms for Little Red Book and WeChat.
Right.
So this is a good channel to reaching out to your people and to listen what their concerns about. And they also give you direct feedback about what they're thinking. And a lot of people reflect to say, it's really good, we can hear from our MPs directly, and they can talk to you directly. So it's breaking the barriers. So good communication can resolve a lot of problems. And if you, the first time to see our program and to see our Voice of Community, Mr. Keith Wallahan and Mr. Michael Schucker both get the Little Red Book. Please follow them. And they will bring more policies in the future.
That's right.
Thank you. And also for the next one, so we move to multicultural communities. In a society as diverse as Australia, inclusivity is very crucial to unity and progress. So Mr. Wallahan, how do you view the role of multiculturalism in shaping modern Australia? What steps have the federal government and yourself taken to promote culture inclusivity?
I think there's two aspects to it, and I always think of it on a timeline. So you think back to where we've come from all around the world, and we look back with gratitude. And that gratitude can show itself in acknowledging our parents and our grandparents, community language schools on the weekend, key festivals like Moon Festival, Lunar New Year. They're all about honouring where we've come from. But then when you look forward, as all of us being Australians, I think of hope. Hope is what the future is about. And I think both are important. Gratitude for where we've come from, hope for where we're going tomorrow. And that's the glue that holds us together as Australians. And I think both are required. And so when we move forward into the future, that common glue of all of us under that one flag of being Australian, all of us being within this one continent that we call home, a beautiful place, and all of us supporting each other and fighting for each other. And no matter your background, you know, the colour of your skin, your religion or anything, you are Australian, and we must always look out for each other and fight for each other. And if we do that, Australia's got a very, very bright future ahead of it.
Make Australia great again, right?
That's one way to put it.
And also, I met with Mr. Shuker last time in the Moon Festival activity. So they're really actively to participate in different multicultural activities. So to understand their values and understand the customs. So that's really good, and to help our multiculturalism to be spread in the community. And also, Mr. Shuker, integrating into new society can be challenging for migrants, right? So how does the federal government ensure fair access to opportunities and the resources for multicultural communities?
Sure. Well, one of the great things about Australia is, and I think this has really been emphasised by most governments over the years, but particularly Liberal and national governments, has been that we really support new migrants to this country, not forgetting where they've come from, bringing their cultures and traditions with them. And even for the next generation, it's really important, in our view, that you understand where your roots are from, where your family's from. And for me, that was very important growing up, knowing where I could trace my family back to, and my father's from Lebanon, and having a really good understanding of my family traditions. So we're very supportive of it, which is one of the reasons why Keith and I, we probably go to more New Year festival events or Moon Festival events than Christmas events, to be honest, because we genuinely enjoy it and we think it's a really important part of the culture. So that's the first thing. We think you don't need to forget where you've come from to be a really good Australian. In fact, it's right and proper that you remember where you come from and that you instill that in your children as well. So important for their self-identity. But in a sort of a more direct sense, we believe in prosperity and security. What's the reason that brings people to Australia? If you really wanted to boil it down, it's that we're a prosperous nation, and if you work hard, you can provide for your family, and that you can do so in relative safety and security. And that's why Keith and I are so motivated by those sorts of issues. We want a strong economy. We want the government to tax you less. We want to support small businesses. We want to support entrepreneurs who want to get out and do things and make things happen. But we also think we need a society where you're safe. You're safe to go about your business. You don't need to worry about somebody breaking into your home or trashing your car or, as has sadly happened, burning down a synagogue. And that's the other thing that I think really motivates and concerns us. In Victoria, I think the Labor government here has failed on a number of areas. I don't think people feel safer than they did years ago. I know myself and my neighbours, we don't feel safer. We think that people who break the law and commit serious crimes should be dealt with. They should be dealt with harshly. We don't think that's happening here in Victoria at the moment. I was speaking to some local police the other day who said to me, Michael, we've just arrested someone for breaking into a home and they will just be out the next day. They will get bail, they won't be incarcerated, and they'll probably be reoffending. That was this police officer's view, who sees it every single day. So we're very motivated by safety and security. We believe that people must be safe. We think that's one of the big reasons why most of our families came here, along with a prosperous society. And in the end, if you want a government that's going to protect law-abiding, decent Australians from those people who break the law, I think historically, if you look at it, it's Liberal and national governments who do that.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So our next topic is about ensure our community safe. Yeah, it's a very big topic, and also we discussed that one last broadcast.
Indeed.
So it's still a lot of things happening. In our previous live stream, we discussed community safety and crime, which remains as a key concern for the communities. And could you outline what actions the Liberal Party is currently taking or proposing to address these issues to ensure our community is safe?
The first thing to do is to acknowledge when there's a problem. And so in my electorate, we've seen a doubling of aggravated burglaries. And an aggravated burglary isn't just a property crime. That's where someone breaks into your home and there's a person there, often a young family. And these have sadly ended in people being injured. And in Doncaster, a young doctor was killed. That should never happen in Australia. But we've also seen other crimes. We saw again in Doncaster a shooting. We've sadly seen families worried about people in vans looking to pick up children.
Yeah.
So crime is a problem, and it's a particular problem around here. And I want to acknowledge and thank the Chinese community. You told me about this over a year ago, that you're seeing this increase. And it's taken the police and the judicial system a while to catch up. Now, Michael and I, we're not going to pretend that this is all something that the federal government can press a button for and solve. There is a very important role for state law enforcement agencies. But we have an important role in advocacy. And so when we speak and write to our state colleagues or the police ministers, to their credit, they will listen to us. And one of the things you told me, and I noticed when I visited police stations, is that they're overwhelmed with other things, including family violence and other minor issues. So when I wrote to the state police minister, I said, you need a specific task force that is looking at violent home invasions, because that seems to be where the greatest risk is happening. And the amount of times I've heard of families take CCTV footage to a police station with a picture of the person's face, and it ends nowhere. It ends nowhere. That's a resourcing problem, and we need to fix that, because otherwise we're just going to incentivize this to occur again and again. So our number one role is as advocates, and then secondly, there's a specific cross-border issue in terms of knife crime, and Peter Dutton has proposed what's called Jack's Law, which will see tougher penalties for the trade of violent weapons around Australia, as well as tougher offences for post and boast. Many of these young offenders are not just committing the crime, they're taking videos and boasting about it. And there's powers that the federal government has, and we're going to make sure that they are enforced, and we will make sure that the laws are very clear. If you commit the crime, you do the time.
Yeah, that will be really good in place. So the Jack's Law. Also, Mr. Shuker, recently did you heard about the 10 abduction attempts involved a wide van which have raised significant concerns in our community. So from a federal perspective, what factors do you believe are contributing to these incidents?
Well, I think Keith made a good point that these are typically the province of state governments, but I was very alarmed with the one of the alleged abduction attempts in Blackburn, which actually is not far from where I live, and so in my immediate community has caused huge concern for parents. Now, I don't think in instances like that you can or should blame a government or one individual decision or one bit of inaction, but the truth is, as Keith has quite rightly alluded to, here in Victoria we're not safer after 10 years of a Labor government, and there doesn't seem to be consequences for actions, and the police are very under-resourced. In fact, if you get in your car now and drive down the road and see a police car, you'll probably see handwritten signs on the side of the cars, the police pleading with the state Labor government to help resource them, help ensure they're able to do their job properly, because at the moment they're not being funded appropriately to do so. And I think for most Australians, including Chinese Australians who really value safety and security, why is the government able to waste billions of dollars on whether it's the Commonwealth Games bid, whether it's a range of other projects that have seen billions of dollars of waste and rorts, but they're not able to find money to protect our community by funding police properly. And so I don't think in that environment it's surprising to see that people are nervous, that people are concerned, quite rightly. We all know of someone who's experienced something really terrible, whether it's an aggravated burglary, whether it's a car being stolen, whether it's just antisocial behaviour when you get on a train or a tram and feel unsafe because there is somebody there who probably needs to be attended to by the police, but there's no police around to do it, and so you instinctively don't feel safe yourself. Unfortunately, I think it's a consequence of a long-term Labor government, and what we're seeing federally with the Albanese Labor government is a very similar sense. And we've got violent criminals who are not citizens of this country, 250 who have been released from detention. These are murderers and rapists, some of the worst criminals you could find, who are out in the community, and the government said that they were monitoring them, that they were watching them, and we now find out that many of them were not monitored, were not being watched, and have since committed crimes against Australians. So unfortunately we don't see the Labor government taking security seriously. Keith and I know that safety and security and feeling safe when you're in the community is so important, and that's why it's a big focus.
Yeah. Also, I received some feedbacks from the police officers as well. You know, the police officers are controlled by the state for the state government, right? So, but from federal level, how can we address these public safety issues and threats to ensure and protect our students and also a broader community? Because we know that we're short of staff in police officers. So about how we can address this from federal level to give some tips.
Well, I think, you know, at a federal level in relation to enforcement of laws, you know, ultimately we are very determined to make sure that we maintain our integrity of our border protection, that we support communities. You saw this week the synagogue was firebombed, and it took our shadow Home Affairs Minister, James Patterson, to be there on site immediately, reassuring the community and providing a whole lot of ideas of what should happen, including a specific task force to find the perpetrators.
Yep.
The government then followed a few hours later, but it was an example of us being really focused on the safety of every single community, and no community, whether it's the Chinese community or the Jewish community, should have to face those sorts of issues. And you need a government that's proactive and that's on the front foot, not always reactive, and being slow in response.
Yeah, that's great. So we have to also, I talk with the police officer, also we need to educate our community to the awareness how to protect ourselves. So it's another point. So, but from both of your side, from the federal level, we want to see some actual actions to helping us to enforce and also make our community more safer place.
Sure.
Yeah.
And just on that, there is a federal role, and the coalition is committed to this, of providing better camera and lighting for areas that need it, including around here in Box Hill or in many parts of Melbourne. So that is a very specific federal contribution that we are committed to.
Yeah, that's great. And also, we'll talk to next topic. So, you know, for your future policy directions, you know, with the federal election is approaching, right? It's next year, March, May?
Well, We're the last to know.
We'll find out when you do that.
Okay, yes. So, can you guys share some insight into the Liberal Party's vision and the key policies plans for the future?
Sure. Well, I mean, we've in broad strokes touched on it today, but we want to strengthen the economy. We want to lower inflation. The way you lower inflation is the government's, just like a household or just like a business, got to get its own spending in order. If we lower inflation, we'll be able to lower interest rates. And lowering interest rates is going to help families who we know since the Labor government have been elected are now spending on average $25,000 a year more on their mortgages. We want secure energy. We've spoken about our multi-energy mix, which includes baseload nuclear, which also includes renewables, to provide a really stable energy system, which will also bring down prices. If we do that, that in turn helps lower inflation too. So more jobs, stronger economy, lower inflation, lower interest rates, and I think another theme that we've touched on today, really supporting small businesses and entrepreneurs. That's got to be a focus because we can't have a situation where record numbers of small businesses are going bust, either into liquidation or administration or people just closing. And one direct way of doing that is government removing regulations, taxing those businesses less, and helping them get on with creating the jobs and wealth that Australians need.
Yeah, that's great. How about from your side, Mr. Wallahan?
No, I fully endorse what Michael just said, which shouldn't come as a surprise to everyone. Absolutely. I mean, there are families who are living paycheck to paycheck, and any extra increase in their bills or their rent or their mortgage is going to push them over the edge.
Yeah.
And there's a really sad consequence for this. Michael and I both have many food banks in our electorate. And I don't know about you, Michael, but I've never seen the queues longer.
It's crazy.
And that's heartbreaking, to live in a prosperous nation like we do in 2024, to see families having to queue up for food. That's not the country any of us want to live in. And that's really quite sad. So our job is to make sure that those food banks don't have a reason to exist. And I think we should make sure that they don't. And key to that is the economy, because it's from the economy that everything else flows. And Australia is a prosperous nation, not because of the jobs or building by government, it's by you. You're the reason Australia is a prosperous nation. So the government's job is to support you, not to be a burden to you. And that's the biggest difference in perspective that a new government will need to focus on.
Yeah, that's great. And also, I received some questions from our audience. So one of that is like they mentioned about after COVID. So it's very hard for the small businesses to live, to survive. So they come across a lot of difficulties. They want to know when the economy will come back. So that's a very good question. It's a very general question for you too. Yeah, but like for me. Myself, I'm a small business owner, so I can see after COVID is quite different from before. So we want to see good policies. And what do you think the estimate time we're back to good economy?
Well, the truth is that we'd be lying to you if we said that we can press a magic button and improve the economy overnight. But what we are saying to Australians in hoping that they vote for us at the next election is that we will go back again to a government that has small business at the front of our minds. As I keep saying, I was the Assistant Treasurer in the former government, and that means I was the Assistant Treasurer during COVID. And can I tell you that in so many of our decisions, whether it was the cash flow boost, whether it was the decisions we made around JobKeeper, JobSeeker, and the instant asset write-off, which was a big boost for small businesses, all of our decisions were really focused on how can we help small businesses. Most new jobs are created by small businesses, and I can just promise you that a future Liberal government under Peter Dutton will again be focused, every decision, how can we support small businesses? How can we reduce their taxes? How can we reduce their energy bills? how can we get government regulation out of the way? Because we know that every time you've got to fill out a government form, it makes life a little bit harder for you. And every minute you're spending dealing with regulations is a minute you're not spending, is ultimately a minute you're not spending on your business. And finally, I think we will go back to a situation where we really try to pursue any opportunities for additional trade that we can. It was the former government that signed free trade agreements with China, with Japan, with Korea, with many of our near neighbours, because we know that trade is so important, and we'll have a focus on that too. And trade isn't just about big businesses, Aaron. Trade is often about small businesses who do a remarkable job in both importing and exporting product.
Yeah, we have to be open-minded to do the trading, to do the business to different, partners. So we have to make sure everyone is on the same page, so it's great. So also some audience ask about the housing prices keep rising, right? So is there any strategies we can to make sure we can affordable for these houses?
Well, Keith might want to add to this, but I'll just be brief. The reason why house prices keep growing in most parts of the country is because it's very difficult to build new stock. And if you've got more people moving into the country or more people getting to an age where they want to buy their own home or rent a home for themselves, if there are fewer homes on option, it just means, as you all know, it pushes up the price. And this is the big problem with the last few years. We've built fewer homes, tens of thousands less homes. So a big part of our strategy will be, as I said on a couple of occasions, let's build more homes, up to 500,000 more homes over a 4-year period. That will, we think, create more opportunities for people to get into home ownership. And it will also help people who are renting, because if there are more homes in the entire housing pool, then there'll be more homes available for rent as well, and those are the sorts of things that put downward pressure on rents as well.
Yeah, that's very good. So I saw a lot of people are renting now, so they get the renting support, right? So from the government as well. Yeah.
Well, some people, a very small number of people get rental support from the government. The vast majority of people don't get any support for rents. And I think if we look at most of our big capital cities, a lot of the new rental stock will be townhouses or apartments. It's very hard every time I speak to builders now, it's very hard to build new apartments in particular because the construction costs are so high. Yeah. One of the reasons why construction costs are so high is these unions, the CFMEU, which we know has been infiltrated by criminals, has been pushing up prices basically by demanding payments ultimately in one way, shape or form, which puts up the prices and just means that less apartments are built. So we think it's very important to get control of the construction industry as well, get those criminals out of the system, and that will mean ultimately more projects can go ahead, more apartments will be built, and if there are more apartments being built, there'll be more opportunities, and we think homes with lower rents than would otherwise be the case.
That will make a big difference.
Correct.
Yeah. And also, at last, so Mr. Shuker, Mr. Wollohan, do you have anything you want to talk to our audience? And also, I encourage everyone to follow their Little Red Book and also the WeChat channel. Yeah. So they will show you how they engage with the community, and also they will reflect the real concerns and the problems from the community. All right?
I think since I last did an interview with you, I've actually been to China, so since then.
Yeah.
And that was really interesting from two perspectives. First was the importance of trade, as Michael has mentioned. Australia's largest trading partner is with China, and our leader, Peter Dutton, has said when the Premier of China visited, he was asked about trade with China, and he said he wants to see it double. And the reason he wants to see it double is because there's a clear prosperity link for both countries. And I saw many small business and medium business owners from this community doing wonderful, exciting things in Shanghai and Beijing and throughout China. But then also the goods and services that we see in return. So just seeing how important trade was on the ground was a real eye-opener. The second was just the rich cultural history of where most Chinese Australians have come from. It's a civilization that it goes back many thousands of years. It was fascinating to see the country of your birth and that deep, rich history, which I know you're very proud of, and that you seek to pass on to your children through community language schools on the weekend. And I'll conclude with this. I've been visiting many of the community language schools in my electorate on the weekends, and I'm very proud of how well your children do in school. And it's one of the reasons Michael and I are very proud to have some of the highest performing schools in Australia are in our seats. And a key part of that is the discipline, hard work of Chinese Australians. And I want to thank you for that.
Great. Mr. Sugar.
Well, I would just make the point clear to you that, myself and Keith, we're here to serve you. In Australia, one of the great traditions of our political system is Keith and I aren't the masters, we're the servants. We're here to serve you as the people. And one of the reasons why we try to get out to so many events is obviously to meet you, but in meeting you to make clear in your mind that that we value your feedback, we value your thoughts, and we value you and your families. And we think, and I particularly believe, that the Australian Chinese community has been one of the most successful, partly because of what Keith said, the emphasis on providing better opportunities for the next generation, including those educational opportunities, but also the entrepreneurial spirit, the flair for business, for hard work, and in the end, these are things that are, of course, great for your community, but provide so much prosperity and wealth and decency for our society at large. And so we're very fortunate to represent you, and my door's always open, and always an ear to listen to your thoughts, your feedback, and your issues. We are here to deal with your issues. So I hope that today's been an opportunity where you've seen a small insight into that, some of our thoughts, some of our plans for the future, but first and foremost to make very clear to you that we are your representatives, and we're here to serve you in whichever way you need.
That's great. And also for our Chinese Australian communities. Myself, I'm a first generation of immigrants, and also I can see I receive a lot of feedbacks and also concerns from them directly, because we travel from overseas, we come from overseas, we settle here, we come across a lot of difficulties, we're suffering a lot of things, and also we have language barriers, we got the cultural barriers, but you are one of Australians. So the government will look into helping you how to live a better life, and also our two MPs just open their doors and open the communication channel to you as well. So if you get any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out with them. So they will be give you good suggestions to solve the problem, and also you can reflect what you think. That's very good opportunity for them. And also they need this communication channel, so because they heard about a lot of fake news,
Sure.
you know that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that is not from the official channel, so they can't tell the wrong or right about that. So they have to understand which is the government's policies, which is not. So go directly talk to our MPs, so they will give you the right government policy and give you the right routes. All right. Thank you, Mr. Wallahan and Mr. Sugar, for joining us today and sharing your insights. It's evidence that housing affordability, small business challenges, and community safety are crucial issues requiring thoughtful solutions. To our audience, thank you for tuning in. Let's keep this dialogue alive and work together to build a stronger, safer, and more inclusivity community. I see you next time.
谢谢。
Thank you.